that to stream, and then go live. Yeah, that should work, right? And now Facebook and YouTube and Twitter are coming on board, and I think LinkedIn and what have you. Anyway, I was supposed to have a guest tonight, but as you know, there were some very interesting events that happened in Washington, D.C. today. And so I wanted to do a live stream anyway, because we felt it was kind of tone deaf to come on and talk about dating and love as if we didn't even notice the major news that's happening. But I wanted to come live anyway, because I wanted to talk about a specific kind of relationship. The events that happened today in Washington, D.C. reminded me of, today what we're talking about, of course, was the relationship between some American voters and the man who they are in a relationship with, who, sort of in many ways has a lot of influence over them. And it made me think about interpersonal relationships and boundaries. Have you ever come out of a relationship, broken up with somebody, and then sort of remembered who you were and thought, oh my God, I'm never going to do that again. I'm not going to lose myself in that relationship. And so I wanted to take some time to talk about boundaries within relationships and what they are and what they mean. First of all, remember, you can't put a boundary on anybody else. You can only put a boundary on yourself and your reaction to them. So when I talk about boundaries and I talk about healthy relationships, I talk about maintaining a sense of self. It's really important that you know who you are in any relationship so that you won't be dominated, you won't be gaslit. Somebody asked me the other day, what does gaslighting mean? And the term is based on a movie from, I think, the 1940s or 50s about a husband who literally drove a woman insane by making her think that she was crazy. And so that's often what narcissists do in relationships. They gaslight and make you feel like and doubt yourself. But the reason why the events of today made me think about interpersonal relationships and boundaries is because sometimes you can get in a relationship that is so close that it becomes your identity. And certainly many of the people who voted for Donald Trump are also victim of what I call identity politics, right? And that's why he had such power in order to motivate them. And while I don't want to fall into the weeds talking about politics, I don't think this is the place to do it. I do want to talk about how we cannot lose ourselves in our own interpersonal relationships, right? How we can have boundaries. I want you to think of your love relationship as, the overlapping circles, a Venn diagram, if you will. That means that you are one piece, they're one piece, and there's an overlapping part of your life. Relationships that have problems with boundaries are ones where the circles are so completely overlapped that nobody can remember whose problem is whose. We call that a fused relationship, right? They're so fused that they don't have a sense of autonomy. So what to do if you're in one of these relationships? How do you find yourself and remember who you are? Well, first of all, you need to diversify your emotional portfolio. That doesn't mean being emotionally unfaithful to your primary partner, but it means having other people who you can check in with, who you can be intimate with and vulnerable with. I mean, same-sex friends, even coworkers, family members, etc. Your partner should not be the be-all and end-all to your identity. Because yes, you will lose yourself in a relationship and you will forget your sense of self. And the healthiest relationships are where both partners have a sense of autonomy, right? So how do we have boundaries in our relationships? Well, we stay attached to our stomach and what our stomach's telling us about what is right. And we have a voice in our relationships about being able to say, no, that's not going to fly with me, right? And I think that many, many people fall into these kinds of relationships. I should say that at the other end of the scale, there are people who are so independent and so emotionally separate that they forget to lean on each other, right? Because emotional intimacy, being able to take turns leaning on each other's shoulders emotionally is really vital to staying together a long time. It becomes the glue in many relationships, that vulnerability. So anyway, I just wanted to take a few minutes to talk about relationships, because when I see the events that happened today in Washington, I think about so many Americans who were in a relationship with their leader that didn't have boundaries, that wasn't always healthy, and that they could be easily manipulated by their leader. And that can happen to anybody on any side of the aisle, right? Is that identity politics have made us believe we are that thing, right? No, you are you, and you're allowed to be you within any system, including your love relationship system. Okay. Anybody? Hello, Nancy from New York. Who else did I see here? Sheila, I'm sorry, your ex was a gaslighter. Anybody have any questions about relationships that I can answer? A specific question, maybe in general. By the way, if you guys have not gone onto my TikTok, if you're not a TikToker yet, you might want to try. I started making TikTok videos recently, and it's an interesting world over there. I kind of like it. Okay, somebody has a question. What if a girl doesn't text back? That's pretty simple. Either she's not into you, or she's asked you to call her, and I instructed her to get you to call by not texting back, right? But if you don't hear back from somebody and they haven't told you I'd prefer to hear your voice, then sorry, they're probably not in with it. Is it that insecurity? No, she's not into you. If she was into you, believe me, we know how our pretty little manicures know how to hit those buttons. Okay. Any other questions? Somebody worried that they're codependent. Well, you'd have to give me an example. Anybody else have any questions that are polite and not pornography? Is it okay to directly ask someone if they like you? No. How about telling them your feelings and see if they reciprocate? Because it's really weird pressure to go, do you like me? Are you into me? That looks insecure. It does. How about saying, hey, I'm kind of attracted to you. I'd like to get to know you a little better. Wonder how you're feeling about that idea, and see if they reciprocate. What do I do if I tell a dear friend of mine that I only like him as a friend? Continues, he's a great guy. Do I have to cut ties? No, at that point, if you keep the boundaries yourself, then it becomes his problem. If you friend zone somebody and you're very clear and you're not flirting and all that stuff, if you friend zone somebody and they stay around and they're in that hopeful mode, you're not responsible for their feelings. And if they get hurt, that's on them at that point, as long as you're clear all the way and you keep exerting the boundaries. Hi from Mississippi. How are you, Jacob? Carol says, I feel like I forget what I want when I'm in a relationship. Yeah, it's really hard to keep your sense of self and also create this new, really cool thing between the two of you, right? A new union. Any other questions? How to deal with jealousy and cousins talk behind your back. Well, first of all, this is very natural and it's very normal, except I would worry about jealousy that goes too far. I mean, some degree of jealousy is important because it shows they care. Too much jealousy can border on, controlling behavior. And too much jealousy shows that that person might be really, really insecure. How to deal with people speeding, fake rumors? I'm not clear on that question. I know it can be frustrating. By the way, if he makes you feel bad and insecure and you're not comfortable around it, then yeah, wean him off a bit. Is revenge evolutionary advantageous? No, absolutely not. Revenge only, you know that saying, revenge is like drinking poison and hoping somebody, or that's resentment, same thing. Resentment is like drinking poison and hoping somebody else will die. Revenge never feels good for any side. It's a wasted emotion. Bye Friday with Mateo. Thank you for coming by. Thank you, Lorenzo, for the compliment. It has been a weird day. It really has been a weird day. I know. I'm trying to keep calm. How do you build self-love? You reparent yourself. You find ways to remind yourself that you're great. Don't laugh. I mean, this is not narcissism, but I had a mother who loved me very much. She wasn't perfect. But whenever I'm stressed, I hear her voice in my head. It's now my voice. I'm not hearing voices. And literally she's saying, I'm so proud of you. You're doing great. I know this is hard and you've got this. Like, I hear her voice. You can put those voices in your head if you want to practice self-love. Any other questions I'm seeing? I know, Steve, a really crazy day. It's so bizarre. It's surreal in some ways. How do I tell a person that is in a one-sided conversation talk about themselves in the conversation? You mean they're talking too much all about themselves? Well, I always comment on what's happening instead of the content. So I was actually talking to someone recently who was a mile a minute all about themselves and themselves. And I stopped and said, it's interesting listening to you, but I feel like I'm watching a performance instead of having a conversation. That made that person sit up and think, right? What if your mother gaslights? Ooh, I'm sorry. If that happens to a child, that's a very damaging thing. If you're an adult, you can create some boundaries and in your reaction to the gaslighting, move away from them. See if there are any other questions. Just waiting as they roll along. Any more relationship questions at the end of our crazy day? So if you've just come on, I'm not going to stay too long. I just want to, oh, here's a good question, Julian. How do I get my partner to trust me and open up? Well, you know, everybody has their own communication style and how much they can tolerate intimacy. So generally, the best way to help somebody open up is to model it for them, right? To open up to them and not push them to open up in a huge way, because you're criticizing them by doing that. Like, you never tell me your feelings, and I don't really know what you're feeling, right? How about just model healthy feelings? And if you can sense because of vocal tone or body language that they're feeling down, comfort them, but you don't have to go, tell me everything. Because that's pressure for people who are just learning. I realized I'm in a very manipulative with an anxious attachment style. How do I fix it? Who's got the anxious attachment style, them or you? If it's you, therapy can really, really help. If it's them, then that's their insecurity and their anxiety that's creating control in relationships. And you've got to comment on not the like, why are you always calling me? But more like, I feel in this relationship like I'm being a little bit smothered, and I'm wondering if you have anxiety that I'm going to leave you. Like, just talk about the meta communication. What to do if your partner will not go to therapy and won't communicate? Well, go to therapy anyway. You know, one person in a couple can go to couples therapy because you can learn techniques for changing your reaction to your partner. So I'm a big believer that if your partner will not go into therapy, that you should anyway, because you can learn all kinds of relationship skills. Okay. How can I work with self-image, self-esteem, or anything else if I've never been given a chance to go on a date? Start with all kinds of small, gentle communications with people that, you know, may not be somebody you'd want to go on a romantic date with, Nate, but, you know, just practice having connections with people, coworkers, family members, you know, just strangers, Starbucks, open the door for them, have a chat, right? Dr. Wendy, Rick says, my dad is 81 and fragile. I'm sorry to hear. My brother is in denial about COVID and will visit him. Ooh, what can I do to get him to realize he's endangering dad's health? Well, you probably can't get him to realize, but you can create some family rules and boundaries. And if you have any caregivers or other extended family involved, you can just create rules and say, and get your dad on board too, to say, I'm sorry, we're only going to FaceTime until we get the vaccine. Uh, is it bad to ask a girl I like to text me back quicker? Yes, because what you're saying by that is I feel less valuable than you and I'm going to make you like me, or I'm insecure. If you're in a long-term relationship with somebody, you can talk about communication styles and what works better for each of you, and you can come up with a routine. But if you're just dating and it's that time of unknowing, you've got to learn to contain yourself and just wait, or move on to somebody else who does text you back at the same time. Any more questions about relationships? I have my dinner starting over there. I'm boiling some simple potatoes. I have a little filet mignon and some broccolini. Yum, with an arugula salad. Anyway, it's good to see you. I'm sorry about the events today. We're really having to look at the open wounds that exist in our country. And I don't mean to get on my soapbox again, but we all need to come together and understand each other. We have so much more in common than not. And so many of us on all sides of the aisle are being fed so much information, misinformation by the media. I think we need to stop and hear those who are feeling disenfranchised at this time on all sides, really, and just listen. And that's a lesson for every kind of relationship, right? Anyway, thank you, Shannon, for the lovely compliment. I don't know, lighting, makeup. Let's go with that. Have a wonderful evening, everybody. I'm here every Wednesday at 6 o'clock on all my social media. Follow me, if you don't, on Instagram. And because I have some contests coming up that are for Instagrammers only. So if you don't follow me on Instagram yet, and you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, wherever you're watching, make sure you follow me on Instagram, because I'm about to announce a contest that would be a lot of fun. Anyway, have a wonderful evening. Let's hope our country can heal, because it's a very strange time. I love you all. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for being here.